Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. I'm Nick. This is Casciotti News. Today, we've had 3 topics to discuss. If you haven't seen them, subscribe to the channel. They will be linked up here as well. You have an opportunity to check those out. We've got a libertarian. Her name is Angela in California. Matt, a Republican in Texas. Joe, a Green Party member in Idaho. There's no gotcha moments. They had the opportunity to get these questions and all of our topics beforehand. They were texted to them. They had an opportunity to formulate their opinions to provide you with the best, most accurate way on how they're going to respond to them. So topic number 3, I'm going to read to you what they got earlier today. Topic 3, COVID card. There is a COVID card or app that is under development right now. The government looks like they want folks to carry these with you everywhere. Is this the future? You may need to carry and prove you have a COVID vaccine. Let's discuss. Joe.
Okay, one of the issues we have with the card is the idea of whether it's going to be mandatory or voluntary. Okay, so the COVID tracking, the personal tracking, a lot of people signed up for that for voluntary reasons. They were part of the community. They wanted to see things work. We ran into an awful lot of trouble where people were upset about the idea that it was mandated, much like we're having the same problem with the masks right now. If they were able to keep it a voluntary basis, I see an awful lot of early adopters taking advantage of it and going with it, especially considering it presents a very clear present method for them to provide their medical history when going abroad, when traveling, part of a passport program, if you will. However, a lot of people seeing it mandatory will probably stop using organizations like the airports where you have to go through the TSA, present your credentials. If they do make it mandatory, I see air travel dropping off pretty quickly because people start taking vacations to places where they can drive to since they don't want to present their credentials at this point. Now, this isn't an issue, well, this is compounded by the fact that nobody trusts Pfizer. You know, they are one of the biggest grifters in PharmaCorp. They've settled for the largest fraud lawsuit to date. I mean, why would anybody want to have to document that, hey, yes, I submitted to the liars. They promised that they were going to be able to make this thing good in the short amount of time they had.
Matt, talking about the COVID vaccine and having to carry a COVID card, proof of you getting that vaccine. Is this a go from the conservatives?
I can't speak that it's a go from the conservatives, but I will speak that from the fact of a millennial that's been stuck inside for 10 months. And if I have to get background checked and I have to get interviewed just to get pre-checked, so to prove that I'm not a terrorist before I fly and go through security, I don't see an issue with having to prove that I had a vaccine to get into a concert or a sporting event or a restaurant or a bar. It should be not a big deal. It's just saying that you got the vaccine and you're protecting other people. And to the point that we're going to see a drop off in air traffic, or we're going to see, another hit to the industry of travel, I find that very hard to believe. We're in the midst of a global pandemic and people are still getting on planes to whatever country will let them in. And I don't see a vaccine, of all things, being the reason, even if it comes with having to carry around a card or carry around a QR code on an app, being a reason for people not to go on with their normal lives after these 10 months of hell.
Angela, how do you respond to Matt?
The Bill of Rights protects us from unreasonable searches. That includes forcing us to reveal our medical records and our medical conditions. I understand that we're looking at this through a free market lens, saying companies are doing this on their own, and that's great. But it's not such a free market lens if the government is coercing businesses to do this in order to stay in business. And that is a big problem that we have seen with lockdowns, social distancing, mask mandates. Businesses are enforcing them because the government is making them enforce them. So I will not support this, any type of vaccination app, mandatory usage of it and showing test results to get on flights or any travel in any business, because I believe that it is government coercion of the individual. And I certainly don't agree with Pfizer being, given a leg up in this race. I don't trust them. I don't trust any pharmaceutical company in general, and that's okay. I can still use their products at sometimes when I need to and be skeptical of them, as everyone should be. You should be skeptical of what you should put in your body. You should be skeptical of the government. I'm skeptical of both.
Joe.
Being a United States Army veteran and having gone through the anthrax panel as part of the experiments getting ready for deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, I do not support mandatory vaccines. I do not support mandatory documentation to be presented at will. I remember being in the Army and having those rights suspended, you know, court martial, discharge if you disagreed with submitting to the testing. I can't agree with it.
But my big question, Joe, so pushing back on that, so we may have to be carrying this card around that we've proved that we got the vaccine, but there's no kinds of checks and balances when it comes to voting. We've got 3 minutes left. Joe, you have 1 minute on how this differentiates itself from voting. I mean, why have we seen so much potential fraud claims, but there's no protections on of people that are voting, where we may have more protections on COVID? Joe?
Okay, honestly, that's a state by state issue. In my state, in Idaho, we've done pretty good. We have a paper ballot check against the digital readers. We create the paper ballot, we send it through the digital reader. There is a paper count to validate the digital recordings at the end. We've done proper security in almost every avenue in order for auditing, tracing, and so on. Those other states that declined to take those additional audit procedures, well, that's on them. And that goes back to the issue of whether the states have the permission to do something like that.
Matt, 2 minutes left. Go.
When we compare a vaccine and proof of a vaccine to voting, they're two completely different things. And you said it yourself. You said we have backups, we check paper ballots, the electronic ballot or the electronic reading systems. What's different from that when it's our democracy at work versus us ensuring people have been vaccinated to ensure that everyone that they come in contact with isn't going to contract a virus that could potentially kill them. I think voting is part of democracy, and being safe and feeling like you can live your life freely in the United States of America go hand in hand. I think it absolutely shouldn't even be in the same sentence.
Angela, 1 minute left. How do you respond?
The TSA has never caught a single terrorist since its existence, but they have robbed and assaulted lots of people. Be careful about rushed government policies that are enforced in response to an emergency, screaming about how it's going to keep you safe and how those policies are going to be enacted and kept in perpetuity. Use judgment.
Go ahead, Joe.
You only find what you don't check, or you only find what you check.
Concentration of power is never a good thing. And as Angela brought up, don't trust it the more that it gets concentrated in certain places. TSA, bad news, always has been, hasn't lived up to its expectations.